Are you ready to lock in on your nutrition? If so, you're in the right place. I've been locked in for about a week with my 30-day lock-in challenge, which I created for myself for accountability purposes. If you're interested in that, please check out my other videos on my channel or check out the link below. I hope you can get something out of this. It's going to be kind of like a Nutrition 101 course. So if you're ready, let's get started. Think about it. You don't see a lot of big, fat, heavy, old people walking around. You don't even see a lot of big, heavy, muscular people walking around at old age. That's why I think some of these actors like The Rock and Batista are losing weight. I think it's more for longevity. So let's see what we can take from this. Let's get started. A nutrient is a substance in food that promotes growth, maintenance, and repair. So if you're hitting the gym especially, you need something that's going to feed the muscle and help you recover. So there's two types of nutrients. We have macronutrients, which we often call macros. These things give us calories and make up the majority of food that we eat. And this would include carbohydrates, which we often call carbs, proteins, and lipids. Okay, and the lipids a lot of times we just call fats. So for example, if you took a burger, the bun would be the carbohydrates, the meat, the majority of the meat would be the protein, and then the fat that's kind of infused in the meat, and the oil and the grease, that would be your lipids. And so that makes up the majority of food that we eat, that gives us calories. And then the second one they're called micronutrients. These are things that our body needs for good health, but don't necessarily give us calories. These would be like vitamins and minerals, things like calcium, zinc, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K. And another one that I would throw in there would be water. Water we need for hydration, to fuel our workouts and help us recover. So what is a calorie? The scientific definition is it's the amount of energy required to raise a kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. That's why we're constantly burning calories and maintaining a body temperature of 98.7 degrees. Each of the macronutrients gives us a certain caloric value. So for example, carbohydrates and proteins each give us 4 calories per gram, where fats give us 9 calories per gram. That's why things that are high in fat are also high in calories. So let's look at the first macronutrient, carbohydrates. So it's a major source of quick energy. So our body is going to burn off any carbohydrates that we ate throughout the day first before it ever touches our body fat. That's kind of why like these low carb diets seem to work, because it kind of skips that first step of burning carbohydrates. If there aren't any there, there's nothing to burn. So it's going to start burning body fat, which is the next nutrient that it's going to burn. So these things mostly come from plants. You think about like pastas and breads, for example, when you think of carbs and sugars, because at the root, they are sugars. They're made of monosaccharides, which means simple sugars. And one of the most important molecules is glucose, which is the molecule that's delivered to the cells. And then the cells use that to make ATP, which is energy. Okay. And then usually what we do is we store this as glycogen. So a lot of times we have this big storage of glycogen to help fuel our workouts. If we deplete that, you'll hear like bodybuilders, well, I'm depleted. That means they haven't been eating enough carbs to fuel their workouts. All right, so there we go. We're going to move on to the next macronutrient. Next are lipids, which are stored energy. So earlier I mentioned how carbohydrates are burned off first, and then later we're going to go and burn off our fat stores. And usually when you're eating these, they're in the form of solid fats or liquid oils. And there's two main types. There's saturated and unsaturated. The saturated are the ones that get the bad rap for causing heart disease. They kind of build up in the arteries. They stack on top of each other. The unsaturated fats, the way they're bonded, they're kind of irregularly shaped, so they bounce off each other in the arteries and don't build up like the saturated fats. We also need to throw in here cholesterol, which we get mainly from egg yolk. And it is important to get it because we need it for like cell membranes, vitamin D, hormones, which are chemical messages in our bodies. But like with all of these things, moderation is the key. So if you get too much, you can get heart disease. If you don't get enough, then you're not fueling your body the way it needs for different functions throughout the body. So next we'll move on to the next macronutrient, which is proteins. Okay, the next macronutrient are proteins, which are probably the most important biological molecule in the human body. It's made of chain of amino acids. And there's 20 amino acids. 8 of them are essential for nutrition, which you can easily get from eating meat. It's much harder to get all of the essential amino acids just from plant proteins. And we need protein for like our muscle. Okay. That's why, you want like the post-workout shake, protein shake to build the muscle that you just tore in the workout. It also plays a role in like elastin, connective tissue, keratin in the skin, connective tissue. They function as enzymes, which help speed up chemical reactions in our body. And they play a role with hormones. And they also play kind of a big role in, genetics. So yeah, proteins are probably the most important biological molecule. So you want to make sure you get your 1 gram per pound of desired body weight. And now we'll move on to the next thing. So where do I get started? I'm going to show you a website that helps you calculate your maintenance calories and how you can tweak that in order to lose weight or gain weight, and then a macro breakdown of how to set your macros. And you can actually do this without any, technology. You could just eat for a week, track everything, and then if you want to lose weight, subtract 100 or 200 from that and eat that the next week and see if you lost weight. If not, you could lower it and then, kind of tweak it from there. So if you had no technology or don't really want to use a lot of math, you could still do this, by hand, by trial and error. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up the website and show you how to do this. Hey guys, we're on calculator.net to calculate our maintenance calories. So it asks for several metrics. We have our age, gender, height, weight, and activity level. And then once you have all that figured out, you just hit calculate. And here we can see I need 3,025 calories to maintain weight. For a half-pound weight loss a week, I would need to take in 2,775 calories. To lose 1 pound a week, I would need to take in 2,525 calories. And for an extreme weight loss of 2 pounds per week, I would need to take in 2,025 calories. Down here kind of gives you an idea of like a zigzag calorie cycling process. Over on the right are some other health and fitness calculators. So I'm going to click the macro. So for here, you're going to want to put in the same information as you did in the calorie section. So we have age, gender, height, weight, activity level. And then what you want to do is here I'm going to put down, I want to have a 1 pound a week weight loss. Hit calculate. It tells me how many proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and sugars, how many calories that I would need to take in. And you can toggle between different types of diets. So there's a low-fat diet, low-carb diet, high-protein diet, or you could create your own macros. So go ahead and check it out, guys. So just to recap, we went over how to calculate your maintenance calories and how to tweak it and how to set your macros. The big thing is you don't really need to make an extreme change to see results. So a lot of times what happens is people cut 1,000 calories and they do it for like a week and then they burn out and then they can't do it anymore and they give up and then they just gain the weight back. So try just subtracting like maybe 200 or 100 even, and try to take that away from the carbohydrates. And if you're doing the opposite, bulking, try to add it to the protein, get that maxed out, and then just slowly add carbohydrates to fuel your workouts. And now we'll move on to the next thing. So how much protein do you actually need? So the consensus is you need about 1 gram of protein for every pound of desired body weight. So not necessarily how much you weigh, because if you're severely overweight, you don't necessarily need that much protein. But whatever your desired weight is, try to bring in 1 gram per pound of that desired weight. So if you're a 150-pound man, try to get in at least 150 grams of protein every day. All right, guys, here is a sample macro breakdown. We have 250 grams of carbs, 250 grams of protein, and 50 grams of fats. And I like to use this app called Macro First because it does have a free version with a barcode scanner. And I've found that it pretty much has been able to find every food that I've scanned or searched for. Not everything has a barcode, like especially if you go to like a restaurant or that sort of thing. But I've been able to find everything. It logs it pretty nicely. It keeps track of them. It saves different foods, so I don't really have to keep looking for if I'm eating the same thing every day. So yeah, if you don't really have an app, try this Macro First. Not sponsored or anything like that. Hey guys, just a reminder, you may be like me and you watch a lot of bodybuilding content on YouTube, fitness influencers, and your first instinct might be, oh, well, I'm going to do exactly what this guy is doing. But you have to keep in mind, they're not telling you everything. You don't know everything that they're on and what they're doing in the background. A lot of times they leave all that crucial information out. And like for me, I eventually realized that, I don't need to do exactly what they're doing. I need to pull from it little tips and tricks and tailor it to my own workout. So I'm going to give you guys an example of some of the stuff I do, and then you can go and make your own decisions from there. Hey guys, so there's a lot of workout splits and workout, routines and programs and things like that. We have the most basic bro split, which is actually similar to what I'm doing now. The reason why I went with it is because I need to hit a body part almost every day, because that's part of my 30-day challenge program. So for example, I'll do like chest, the next day do arms, the next day do legs, then back, then shoulders. So each day kind of gets its own body part. There's push-pull legs, which you do all your push activities on one day. You do all your pull activities on another day, and then legs. And a lot of times people will split these up into like an A push or a B pull and maybe a quad focused leg day, ham focused leg day. My current split I was combining them so that way I could work out less and still hit everything. So I was doing like chest and triceps one day, back and biceps, and then legs and shoulders. But with the 30-day challenge program, I am trying to get in the gym every day. So like I went to more of a bro split. But yeah, you need to, like I said, tailor it to your needs. Make sure you're adding a lot of time in there for recovery and rest and growth. Hey guys, here's a sample workout plan for my 3-day split when I was doing like chest and triceps together, for example. Now, really what I'm looking for when I walk into the gym, I kind of have a thing in my mind of what I'm looking for, but I'm also looking to see which equipment is available. So if I see the pec deck available, I'm probably going to go straight there, warm up, and use the pec deck. Because my gym only has one, so it's kind of hard to get to. The same thing, if I see like a Smith rack open, I'm probably going to go for that and hit some incline press or some flat bench press. So that's the first part. I'll try to probably get in like some kind of bench press or incline bench press. There's a lot of variations. You can use barbells, dumbbells, cables. Then I'll try to do the pec deck, or I'll use flies. You can use dumbbell flies or even the cables. And then usually some kind of like plate loaded machine press or some kind of cable machine. So that's kind of like the bare minimum. I feel like is like you need to have some kind of press, some kind of fly, and then some kind of extra chest workout to throw in there. Same thing with triceps. With cable push downs, you can use the rope, the easy bar, the D handles, dip machine, and then usually there's some kind of tricep extension machine at most gyms. So like I said, this would be kind of like the bare minimum. I might do more than this. But one thing I kind of fell into a trap of, like I've always felt like I had to do 3 sets of 10 or whatever. And I've realized now that I don't really need to do that. If I do 2 sets and I feel like I've got a pump, I might feel like I want to move on to the next exercise, and I do that sometimes. But yeah, come up with a plan, but be flexible when you go in the gym. Be able to pivot. If the machine's not available, be able to pivot and go to some other alternate plan. So what about cardio? So in my 30-day challenge, I put steps and cardio as 2 different things because they are kind of 2 different things. You can actually get your 8,000 or 10,000 steps and don't do any cardio. You could do cardio and not reach your steps. To be cardio, you have to get your heart rate up to an elevated level. So you could get, basic steps just walking around and get your 10,000 steps, but never actually get your heart rate up. So that's one of the reasons why I put it in my program as 2 separate things. An example workout might be, something simple like a walk on the treadmill, 3.0 speed, 3 incline, and do it for like 30 minutes. something that's helpful is maybe cover up your screen and, pull out your phone, watch a TV show that's 30 minutes, or just scroll on like Instagram Reels or TikTok or something like that. But if you do that, the time will fly and you'll be done before you know it. So when you go to the gym, you want to go harder than last time. Try to push all your sets to complete failure if possible. But you want to do it without getting injured. So you want to get plenty of water and hydration and electrolytes. You want to make sure you have plenty of sleep the night before and you recover. Use rest days if you need them. And you want to fuel your body with the proper meals and nutrition. So this is a lesson that kind of stuck with me. Perfection kills progress. I mean, how many people start a diet and then they end up with having a cheat meal or a cheat day or a cheat weekend, and they're like, I'm done. I've totally effed this up. Now I need to start over again on Monday. I know I've done it, but the thing is, you want to try to be as consistent as possible most of the time. People that succeed are usually consistent the majority of the time, not necessarily perfect. And that's why in my 30-day challenge, I decided to go with an 80-20 rule. So I want to make sure that I'm locked in 80% of the time. So I'm allowed to mess up, 6 times, in the 30 days and still consider it a win. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you hit a hiccup, just try to get back on track and recover. So fasting can be a tool, especially as you get older, to help you stay on track and lose weight. So there are different protocols for fasting. In reality, you fast every night. When you go to bed and you wake up and eat breakfast, you're breaking your fast. So for example, you could do 1 meal a day, which is called OMAD. So for example, you might only eat dinner every day. There's a 16-8 where you have like a feeding window where you're allowed to eat and the rest of the time you're fasting. I've seen people do this every other day fasting. So you eat every other day. There's also, these prolonged fasts like 24 hours, 48, 72 hours, days, that you can do. They say it's best to try to combine this or even start it up with like a low carb diet. That way your insulin and blood sugar is not fluctuating a lot. So yeah, if you want to try to give this a try, like I said, fasting, it can be a useful tool to help you lose weight. I recently saw someone that they say they fast every Sunday, for example, and they've lost weight. So just research it. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. So hey guys, what kind of supplements do you guys take? Me personally, I take a multivitamin and vitamin D separately, and I take them about every other day. I find that gives me good lab work. I do try to take a pre-workout with some creatine. The one I'm currently using doesn't have creatine in it, so I just combine them together. I take protein shakes after, the workouts. And I don't take any peptides right now, but if you do, I'd be interested to know which ones you take and if they actually work. Hey guys, thanks for staying to the end of the video. I hope you were able to get something out of this. And please consider subscribing and liking the video. All right, I'll see you next time.